Thousands of New Zealanders are gaining a faster pathway to Australian citizenship under sweeping changes to immigration rules. Until now, New Zealanders have been able to live and work in Australia indefinitely unless they break the law, but have had limited access to Medicare and welfare and needed to attain permanent residency before seeking citizenship. From the 1st of July, all special category visa holders who have lived in Australia for at least the last 4 years will now be able to attain citizenship. Business owner and kaimirimiri Nadia Thompson no Ngāti Tūwharetoa has lived in Australia and raised her 5 tamariki in Currumbin on the Gold Coast, Queensland for 24 years, and she's with us now. Tēnā koe, Nadia. Thank you for joining us.
Morena, tēnā koe, Neil.
24 years living in Oz. How do you feel about these immigration changes?
Look, it's about time that it happened, and I moved here just after the Howard government introduced the special category visa 444, which made it tremendously hard for me personally because I didn't have the opportunity to apply for the visa. I was lucky that my husband actually came in before that date. So it now means it removes that tedious process of having to apply for the, for the permanent residency, which we are going through the process now.
Well, it's a long time since Kiwis have adjusted to the system. They've contributed to the system in Australia, but have never been able to source things like Medicare and so forth. How have Kiwis in whānau been able to do this?
Okay, so when you first come over, if you came in after that date, you can actually access Medicare services, healthcare services. The only services that it really does impact is the Centrelink services or anything pertaining to support benefits. That was a particular issue for a lot of people, including myself, when I first gave birth to my twins, because I couldn't work, and so you cannot go on any sort of financial payment or support at all. Luckily for me, my husband was working and we had a good job, we've got a business. So, but for those who couldn't, too bad, so sad. Like there was just nothing there unless you had a good whānau support system. You'd have to go back to New Zealand. So now, without having the tedious process, like I said earlier, to have to wait all that time and apply for the visa, you can now, now that you give birth to your children, they can automatically go in and become Australian citizens. It has a tremendous impact on all Kiwis that are looking to come over to Australia.
Like I have heard the odd commentator in Australia talk about the fact that Kiwis are on their welfare system, things they just don't know about. So many Kiwis in Oz now must feel like it's well due. What are the Kiwis saying?
Well, that's an incorrect statement. We don't have access to the services. No. So, for example, COVID was a great example. Throughout COVID, like I myself, we had no support there. We were still continuing to work. We were essential workers. However, for those who didn't have, any income or couldn't go to work, they didn't have that. So I think that statement was a little bit biased. I don't think,
sure.
We definitely didn't have access to that. But now that the Kiwis who came in after that date, after 2001, how that impacts them is that they can apply for straight away go into applying for Australian citizenship without, like I said earlier, the tedious process which I myself have been going through for a long time. So it removes all those barriers. It removes all those having to jump through a lot of red tape through the application process, which is it's a very long process, and I'm still going through it myself. So now that removes the Oh, just the hassle.
navigating and hassling through that system, and totally understand that. We hear about these types of things all the time. Nadia, have you been able to? You haven't, sorry, been able to vote there in 24 years. Have access, as we've mentioned, to welfare and other benefits. What have things been like for you living in a place where you haven't really been regarded as the same as Australians?
Um, well, look, when it comes to voting, yeah, that does it doesn't. Yeah, well, it depends on how you look at that, because I personally don't. It doesn't bother me personally, and Australians, a lot of them are quite understanding, especially in our community. Like they actually agree. They want us to become, you know, to vote, and they wanted that process of getting a visa and becoming a citizenship a lot more. Like they push for it themselves. So Australians are quite supportive of that. They understand, because there's like such a high number of people, Kiwis, living here in Australia, especially around where I live, and I know there's more coming, um, who pay their taxes, and we've paid taxes for a long time here. So it
Sure.
does. Um, so they understand that, and if they're not, if they're not talking to me, they've got family members who are Kiwis or married to a Kiwi, and they too are going through the same struggle. So they're very supportive. Australian communities around here, anyway, are very supportive of Kiwis getting, speeding up that process. So as far as voting goes, yeah, I guess it does have a slight impact, but I mean, what can we do? It's just that's just the way it is. So yeah.
Yeah, no, this is good news for in lots and lots of ways, because Australians can get citizenship here, I believe, a lot easier. And there are like between 200 and 400,000 Kiwis living in Australia who are going to be going, yay, happy days. Nadia Thompson in Australia, thank you so much for your time today. Ngā mihi.
Ngā mihi koutou, and kia ora to all the whānau back in New Zealand.